It started on a quiet Sunday morning. I was out by the barn, just feeding my horses, when I saw flashing lights at the end of my private drive. Before I could even finish my coffee, two so-called HOA cops, security guards dressed like they were on some kind of power trip, came barreling through my front gate without permission. No knock, no warning, just yelling something about me being in violation. Of what, you ask? That's the thing I don't even live in. An HOA community. My ranch sits completely outside their jurisdiction. But that didn't stop them from stomping onto my land like they owned the place. Barking orders, demanding I remove a non-compliant shed and repaint my barn as if they had any legal right to be there. At first, I thought it had to be some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe they got the wrong address. But nope, they had paperwork, or what looked like it, claiming my property was now under review due to a boundary error. That's when I realized this wasn't just a mistake. Someone was behind this, someone trying to force their lie. Control where it didn't belong. And I had a pretty good idea who it was. You see, there's this group on the HOA board who've been trying to expand their reach, and my land's been a thorn in their side. But they had no idea who they were messing with. I keep to myself, live free, and don't go looking for trouble. But when it knocks on my door, especially uninvited, I answer. So later that week, I made a call. My old biker crew rolled in. Not for violence, not for revenge, but to pay a friendly visit to the people who thought they could bully their way into my life. Let's just say things didn't go the way the HOA expected. And that's when the real story began. For years, my ranch has been my sanctuary. It's where I find peace away from all the noise of the world. I inherited this land from my grandparents. And every fence post, every tree, every quiet corner has a story. I've spent countless weekends fixing fences, clearing brush, and just living the simple life. Neighbors respect my space, and I respect theirs. So when those HOA security guards showed up like they owned the place, it felt like a violation not just of my property, but of everything I stand for. The HOA in the nearby town has always been strict, but lately they've been stepping over the line. Rumors started circulating about them wanting to extend their control, and somehow my ranch got caught in the crossfire. I reached out to a local lawyer who confirmed what I suspected. Their claims had no real legal ground. Still, having those cops storm onto my land was unsettling, like a warning shot. They weren't just enforcing rules, they were flexing power, trying to intimidate. That's when I thought about my old biker crew. We go way back, not the troublemakers some might imagine, but a tight-knit group of folks who look out for each other. When things get rough, they're the first people I call. We've shared rides, stories, and more than a few tough times together. So when I told them what happened, they didn't hesitate. They wanted to show the HOA board that my land isn't some place you can just walk into and throw your weight around. But this wasn't about starting a fight. It was about standing up for what's right, protecting a piece of land that means everything to me, and sending a message that respect goes both ways. As my biker friends arrived, engines roaring down the quiet country roads, the tension in the air was thick. No one knew exactly how the HOA would react, and neither did I. What happened next would change everything. But for now, all I knew was that I wasn't backing down. The days following the unexpected visit from the HOA security felt like walking on a tightrope. Every phone call, every message carried a weight I hadn't felt in years. The HOA board wasn't just some faceless group enforcing rules behind their official letters and stern warnings. There were people with agendas, power plays, and maybe even personal grudges. I started hearing whispers from neighbors, some uneasy about the HOA's growing reach, others curious about why the cops showed up at my ranch in the first place. It felt like a slow-moving storm gathering just beyond the horizon. My biker crew became more than just friends showing support. They started digging into what was really going on. One of them had a contact who knew some of the HOA board members personally, and what we found out was surprising. There were rumors about new development plans that would reshape the area and possibly force out a few inconvenient landowners, including me. Suddenly, this was no longer about a shed or paint colors. It was about control, money, and who got to decide the future of the land. On my end, the pressure grew. Local law enforcement had been called by the HOA a couple of times, but each time, the officers left shaking their heads, saying there was no clear violation. Still, the presence of those security cops lingered like a shadow. I had to protect my ranch, not just for me, but for my family's legacy and the peace I'd built here. But how do you fight a system that tries to wear you down with paperwork, warnings, and visits designed to unsettle? Meanwhile, tension bubbled within the community. Some neighbors quietly sided with the HOA, believing in order and rules, while others saw the intrusion as a dangerous overreach. I found myself caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace while standing my ground. The biker crew kept close, riding through the back roads, watching, waiting not to escalate, but to make sure things didn't spiral out of control. No one knew how far the HOA would push this or what the next move would be. All I knew was that this battle was far from over, and the calm before the storm was quickly fading. The days felt heavier as the showdown loomed closer. Every sound on the ranch made me jump: the crunch of tires on gravel, the distant hum of engines. Even the wind rustling through the trees seemed charged with something waiting to explode. The HOA hadn't backed down. In fact, their visits became more frequent, their tone sharper. They brought in new inspectors, claiming more violations, each one more absurd than the last. It felt like they were trying to wear me down, hoping I'd just give up and fall in line. But I wasn't about to let that happen. My biker crew stayed close, always ready. They weren't here to stir trouble, but their presence sent a clear message. I wasn't alone, and I wouldn't be intimidated. Still, I could feel the tension building not just around my ranch, but inside me. I kept thinking about what this land meant. More than dirt and trees, it was freedom, family, history. Losing it, or even just losing control, wasn't an option. Neighbors started watching too, some with sympathy, others with suspicion. Whispers traveled faster than I could keep up with about lawsuits, possible eviction notices, and rumors of behind-the-scenes deals between the HOA and local officials. It felt like a trap closing in, tighter and tighter. I found myself questioning who I could trust, and who might be waiting to see me falter. One evening, after a particularly heated meeting with the HOA board where voices were raised and accusations thrown around, I got a call from my biker crew. They were planning something not violent, but bold enough to make the HOA think twice before showing up again. The night air was thick with uncertainty. Would this be the moment that tipped everything over? Or would it finally force a real conversation? I couldn't tell yet, but one thing was clear. Whatever happened next would change everything. The calm was gone. The storm was here. And all I could do was brace myself for the fight ahead. Just when I thought I had a handle on things, the situation took a sharp turn I never saw coming. A few days after the biker crew's quiet but firm visit to the HOA office, I got a call from a local reporter. Apparently, the HOA had suddenly shifted gears, not just targeting me, but launching a formal investigation into several properties on the outskirts, including some of my closest neighbors. The story was gaining traction, and suddenly, what felt like a personal battle was turning into a full-blown community dispute. But here's the kicker. The reporter mentioned something that sent chills down my spine. Apparently, one of the HOA board members had personal ties to a major development company eager to buy up land around the area. The violations and inspections weren't just about rules or order. They were part of a bigger plan to pressure landowners into selling, clearing the way for new projects. Suddenly, the stakes weren't just about my ranch. They were about preserving the whole rural landscape from being swallowed up by developers. This revelation made everything more complicated. Now, it wasn't just me and the HOA. It was me, my biker crew, my neighbors, and a powerful force with money and influence on their side. The tension in the community exploded. Some neighbors started to panic, thinking about selling before things got worse. Others rallied with me, ready to fight for their land and freedom. But the HOA doubled down, tightening their grip with legal notices and even more surprise visits. As the pressure mounted, I felt the weight of every decision. The peaceful life I'd built was slipping away, and the quiet ranch was turning into a battlefield. The biker crew stayed ready, but even their presence couldn't shake the growing unease. The fight was no longer just about a shed or a paint job. It was about standing up to a system designed to push us out, with everything on the line. The question wasn't just if I could win, it was what I was willing to risk to keep my home. After the intense showdown, things finally began to shift. The evidence my biker crew and I uncovered about the HOA board members' ties to the development company was hard to ignore. With the help of the local reporter, the story went public, shining a spotlight on the HOA's real motives. Pressure mounted from the community and even local officials who didn't want to see landowners pushed out unfairly. The HOA board found themselves on the defensive, forced to back off their aggressive tactics and halt the inspections and violation notices on my ranch and several others. The neighbors who were once divided started coming together, realizing this wasn't just about one property, but about protecting their way of life. The biker crew, always by my side, became part of a larger movement standing up against overreach. It was a relief to see the power of community and truth push back against unfair control. Though the battle was tough, it reminded me that standing firm and fighting for what's right matters more than the fear that tries to hold us down. But here's the twist no one saw coming. Just as the HOA's grip loosened, the development company suddenly pulled out of the plans entirely, leaving the area untouched, at least for now. Turns out, the public exposure scared off more than just the HOA. It showed that when people unite and don't back down, even the biggest players have to think twice. My ranch stayed mine, and the peace I'd feared losing slowly returned. Looking back, the whole experience was a harsh lesson about power, community, and resilience. It wasn't just about land or legal battles. It was about protecting what makes a place home. And while the future is never certain, I know one thing for sure. No matter who tries to push you around, standing together and speaking up can change everything.